If you're still finding your way, that's bullish. Or even if you've got it all figured out, that's bullish. I want to hear what you've got to say. That's bullish. It's Bullish with Toro. Hi.
Hey everyone, Toro here with another episode of Bullish with Toro. Here I interview my former next-door neighbor, Sharon Rowe, who's an entrepreneur and author I've had the pleasure of knowing for over 20 years from our small town of Ossining in Westchester, New York. We chat about her being a small business owner, having a strong work-life balance, and how she finds peace through routine during this never-ending pandemic. Bullish, by definition, is being hopeful or confident that something or someone will be successful, optimistic about the future of something or someone. So, let's get bullish for Sharon Rowe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bullish with Toro. This is Toro, and I'm here today with
Sharon Rowe.
Hello, Sharon.
Hi, Toro.
My neighbor of over 20 plus years, my former neighbor. How are you today?
I'm good. I knew you when.
Exactly.
You better ask me the right questions.
Let's start with the softball. Okay. Do you know why I wanted you to be on the show?
No. Well, I mean, I might have some ideas, but I'd rather not, no. Tell me.
Okay, I will. So, firstly, you're one of the first female entrepreneurs that I've ever known.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I love your company, Bags Products Inc., which is a reusable bag company that's been around for almost 30 years?
30 years.
Wow.
We do that.
And then also you're an author of a book called The Magic of Tiny Business. You don't have to go big to make a great living. And I also give you credit for me being kind of into health and wellness.
Absolutely. I remember that first hike we did out to T-Town through the woods. You were
walking across the lake.
Yeah, I totally remember that. Hacking our way through like semi-managed trails.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of health and wellness,
yes,
I'd like us to warm up before we dive into the official interview.
Okay.
So if you could pick an exercise to do, I'm going to shoot some rapid fire questions at you as you do them. So what exercises are you going to do?
Okay, so my favorite exercise is swimming, but we're in my kitchen, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do a downward dog into a forward plank.
Okay, back and forth. Here we go.
All right, I'm in the plank.
Here we go. All right, what's your astrological sign?
Pisces.
What's your favorite food?
Oh, avocado.
Where's that downward dog, Sharon?
No, I gotta do another downward dog.
What's your favorite city?
New York City.
Your favorite outdoor activity?
Swimming.
Your favorite smell?
Lavender.
Your favorite EcoBags product?
String bag. It's our original product.
Mine too. Your favorite life motto?
It has to be fun.
And who do you like more, Eva or Julian?
Oh no!
Just kidding. Just kidding. Time. We're done. I wonder if I should stop asking people who their favorite family members are.
And they're like, "Who is Eva and Julian? Is that it?"
Yep.
Okay.
For those listening, Eva and Julian are Sharon's children and my dear, dear friends.
Who grew up with you? Yeah.
Okay. So, Sharon, the name of this podcast is Bullish with Toro. So I want to ask each person I interview what they think of when they hear the word bullish.
I always think of you. Like that restaurant that's along the West Side Highway in the 20s. It says Toro.
Yep.
Yeah, I think bullish just means like, going for it, diving in, just being ready. And it's with skill. And it's with, focus.
Focus, yeah, I like that. The definition that I've been pulling from Merriam-Webster is hopeful or confident that someone or something will be successful, optimistic about the future of something or someone. So what I want to get into with you today is what you're up to now in 2020, your outlook for the future. But before we talk about all of that, let's take a step back.
All right.
What kind of a kid were you?
What age? Do you want me to start at the very beginning? I'm the oldest child.
Okay.
I'm 4 years older than my middle sister and 8 years older than my youngest sister. So I was very single-minded. I was very purposeful. Like, I would hide things so I'd have them later. I loved, for some reason, stale Oreos. I liked when they got soft. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So I used to snuggle. I was a little secretive and a little sneaky. And I liked keeping everything very neat and orderly, but I also loved making a big mess. I was playful.
Like a mess of your room or a mess with cooking?
Yeah, like with colors and with things. And I was really playful, really. And, I was the adored first child. And so when my sister came along and, took the spotlight, I was probably pretty pissed off. And then she went on to ruin all of my Barbies, although I just absolved her of that because she turned 60.
Oh, so it was time.
Yeah, it was time. It was time. I wasn't always confident. I mean, I was, in the world of the 70s, I was pretty but not beautiful. I was smart but not sparkling intelligent. I was kind of normal in that way.
That's interesting you say that you were shy, because I know about you that you did acting. Mm-hmm. You were an actor growing up. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I started acting. I think my first show was I was in 6th grade, and it was at the Hartford Jewish Y. And Dora by Max Frisch. It was the first starring role I had. I don't even know if I can remember what the play was about. But then I went on to be part of the theater group at the high school. And I was something you probably don't know. I was a cheerleader. And
I didn't know that.
I was a cheerleader in junior high school. We used to party before cheerleading, so sometimes we didn't really remember all the words once we got out into the field. But, hey, it's the 70s.
Yeah,
whatever. I was not a cheerleader in high school, but I did do theater, and I was also very persistent, and I became a jazz dancer in high school. It took me 3 years to finally make it into the Jazz Dancers, which was this very elite group of girls who got to wear sparkly leotards. I mean, I don't even remember, but it was like, I made it in. So I was very persistent. And then I continued acting through college and into New York and blah, blah, blah.
So what are you up to now?
Well, now, in terms of, I'll go with art. I'm not doing much theater just because it's COVID, first of all, and it takes a lot of time to get a large group of people together and schedules and whatnot. But I have started a playwriting class because I've thought for a while that I want to write plays. I think mostly just because they're really hard to write. So I want to take that on as a challenge more than I have some inner voice telling me I need to express some story. I want to know the skill of it, the craft of it. I've also have a studio where I paint. I have a daily painting practice, and I've done it for about almost 2 years now, come January. And I just love exploring the medium. I love oil paint. I like acrylics. I really love oil more, though, and just seeing how color can respond, working with light and dark. And it can be extremely frustrating, but, bringing something to life. And also being able to go into a room and close the door and nobody can find me for at least an hour every day. I'm actually going to expand that. Other than that, I'm still working in my business. Every day I do something or multiple things because I still own it. I sort of liken it to either a pizza shop or an apartment building. I still own the lease. And so I have to manage all the particulars of that. And I do have a team of 5 people. And we have warehouses, and we have shipments, and we have customers, and we have vendors, and blah, blah, blah. And other than that, let's see, I go for walks, I go for hikes. All summer I swam like 3/4 of a mile a day in this open water lake, which I was telling you about. And then I love to cook, so we've been cooking a lot, and I'm really interested in spices right now. So we're working a lot with different Indian spices, and then how closely that's lines up with, all the Thai tastes and whatnot. And
My favorite food and favorite
really
country.
And then skipping over the Mediterranean and doing whole roasted cauliflower. Oh my gosh.
My least favorite vegetable.
I can get you to love cauliflower with like a tahini lemon sauce. Or I just had the other day a black tahini, a black sesame seed tahini. Oh my God. So just, doing that. Blake and I will sit down for dinner, and if it's a night that we've, put some effort in, we'll say restaurant quality.
Nice.
And the problem is it usually is better.
Yeah, no, you guys are phenomenal cooks. I always,
Yeah.
You say come for
Yeah,
dinner.
I fed you for, that's what I loved about where we lived. We'd be out in the back porch and it's like, come over. And then Patty would come down, come over. And there's Deanna. And then there's Gabby. And then, whatever.
We definitely have that neighborhood vibe.
Yeah, I miss that here. I live, I have no neighbors now. So if I leave the stove on, it's my own fault. I actually was like, oh shit, I left it on.
Sharon, after I asked you that question, I love that your responses around what are you up to now, they weren't focused on the job that makes you money. It's the stuff that you love to do, the artistry, the crafting, the cooking.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've always appreciated and respected about you is that you have one of the best work-life balances that I've ever seen from a professional, especially being a business owner. And I feel like you really just, what was it? You work to live. You don't live to work. Like you have your priorities in order. And segueing to your book, The Magic of Tiny Business, you don't have to go big to make a great living. Can you tell the audience a bit about that and your journey to create a multi-million-dollar company? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's where I am now. So I just want to point out it took me 30 years to get to here.
Fair enough.
And I did have 2 kids along the way. So there's always competing time. You're always competing for time with different interests, right? And at a certain point, at least when my kids were little or even growing up, I was like, well, actually, they're going to be gone soon. So why don't I focus on them? It's not that I didn't work. I didn't have a business. It wasn't like I didn't do theater. I did all those things. I just did them in a different way with different time allotments. And some days were better than others. I actually remember when I took up knitting so that I wouldn't have to answer the phone or get the door. I'm knitting, and I'm a terrible knitter. Anyway, the book, well, first of all, I want to say something based on what you said about building a life work around your life instead of your life around work, which I think can be a pretty transformational idea to some people, but I started there. And one of my biggest influences was my husband, Blake, who's a teacher. And he gets the whole darn summer off every year. And
I was envious of all my teacher friends.
There is no way I'm working in the summer. It's just not going to happen. It's just like, so I was never able to completely free myself for the whole summer. But I was able to create a schedule so that I worked a lot less. Or even if I touched base with the company during that time, it wasn't a heavy lift. It was a lighter lift. And yes, there were crises, and yes, there were meltdowns. Like one time my company was completely falling apart in 2007, the recession. And I was like, I still went to camp. I still was out in the woods, doing dancing and art and whatever, having, a late night call with a financial person saying, what am I going to do? It's falling apart. So I think it's what's important. What I say in the book is it's your business to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your business. There's no good in running yourself down. Plus, you don't get good ideas. You need to take time away in order to look at the business and not be in it. And my approach has been, and I outline it in the book, I'm a big proponent of using the clock to manage your time. And I always think about like when we were in school, even high school, but more in college, you have a class. You don't have a class that lasts all day. You have a class for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. You have a class for an hour. You have 2 projects due. So you allot your time. No one's meant to work nonstop. And then if you want to...
I make a big sigh there just because I feel like since so many people are working remotely, it's hard to kind of shut off.
Right.
Because it's really easy for me to check my email at 9:30 p.m. because I'm already at home.
Right.
And I was working before, so...
Well, I actually come out of a time when there was no what email was at the beginning. This is again, okay, get my walker.
Please.
No, when there was an email and literally the internet, you would hit AOL, and you could go take a shower, get the kids dressed, pack their bags, make lunch, and then it'd go, "You've got mail," and you'd be like, "Oh." So I come from that, and I totally get though not looking at your email. You just have to sort of train yourself, and it's not easy. You have to set boundaries, and you have to train yourself. And I wish there was a way, and I don't do it either, to separate out personal emails, let's say from work emails, to have two accounts, and to turn off the notifications so that you don't, and to set the expectations with other people as well as with yourself. I'm stopping at 6.
Correct.
But I will take, and depending on who you are and what you do, obviously, if you're a surgeon, or you're an emergency, or you're on a big project and it's all time sensitive, it's never 100%. But there's a rule I go by pretty often. I break all my rules, but this is a rule. Try to break less, which is 80% of the time you're adhering to the practices that you want to keep, and 20% of the time it just goes to shit. It just happens. You can't help it. You go to log on to your computer doesn't start. So then you spend the entire day dealing with that. Or you have, you work on projects, you have a whole video production team out and it starts hailing.
For sure.
There are things that need to be taken care of, but that's not the rule. It's the exception. So what do they say? You don't want to wag the dog. Or whatever that's saying.
I can see that. I can see what that means.
Yeah. And it doesn't, and also nothing needs to be perfect.
I totally agree with that. Like, even hearkening to my first episode, I didn't have the gear that we're using right now. I just had my brother, and I had an idea, and I said, let's just start. I don't want perfect to get in the way of great.
Right. And actually, that was a great episode, and I really like this equipment.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, but I'm a boss, right? I'm a boss lady, so so other people
boss lady, I love that.
So other people who work for me maybe feel like they need to be perfect, and it's because I'll pick out the one thing that they didn't do, and I'll be like, that's part of my 80%, not the 20%. So when you're trying to meet someone else's expectations, so in that, the lesson I have to relearn all the time is you have to constantly reset expectations. And also, I don't do it that enough, but that thing of, okay, so this is what you said to me. This is what I,
understood from you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then really important, and again, I don't do it all the time, is write it down. Because we have selective memories. And some of us just have plain old fuzzy memories. I mean, there's so much going on all the time. Like last night, I couldn't remember how to say, saucepan. I had to Google it. The thing that holds liquid on the stove, because who knows what I was thinking of. Oh. Yeah. So
that's actually good advice too for me, because I'm in a managerial position where I work, and I can be pretty particular. So it's important to have those constant check-ins with people who you work for and work with you, and I think that's consistent feedback is pretty important.
Yeah, and open communication. I mean, I can come off pretty hard ass, and I've really
same.
And I've really worked on keeping that, but also to try to get what I want. And it's really hard because not everybody works the same way. I mean, some people you say I need this by Friday, and they have it to you by Thursday. Other people you say I need it by Friday, and the calendar pages flow by, and you're like, what happened to Friday? I mean, I meant that Friday, not the one 6 months ahead. So it's that and it's a moving, not a target. It's moving all the time. We're in flux. It's all live.
Yeah, I remember from your book you mentioned the importance of being agile, especially with a startup.
Yeah, you have to be really agile, and you have to really play with what that word means to you and how it can work for you. I think getting stuck in other people's ideas or processes is not a good thing. You can use them as examples of where you might want to go or where you don't want to go. I actually work much better personally saying I don't want to do that, which is how I arrived at taking, like, I used to swim every day. Now because of COVID I can't, obviously, because the gyms and all that, but I would always take a time off in the middle of the day, and I would call it an appointment. I would mark it as a business appointment on my calendar. And I would go and come back, and no one ever questioned it. So for me, that was my agile, right? Just creating my own time and space. And I mean, was it honest? Yeah. It's like I said, it's your business to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your business.
100%. Our managing director actually instituted on all of our calendars throughout the company from 12 to 1, it's a healthy break, especially during COVID, where you can easily just be on your computer for 10 hours in a row. I have to check myself too sometimes to get up, go outside, take a walk, drink some water.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just different times we're living in, and the work-life balance is a little bit difficult to maintain, especially when your life is closer to work just because of proximity.
Yeah. And I mean, I know I can sit here, this is my new office at my kitchen table. I have an office upstairs. I just don't feel like being up there. And I can sit here for 4 hours and be completely consumed. Like, forget that I'm even sitting in a chair at my desk, because there's a certain flow, especially if you're interested in what you're doing. And actually, even if you're not, if you're just really on it. And I find that all the Zooming, it's completely draining. Not all. Some are actually structured really well, but they can be really draining. And you have to get up. You have to move. And I'm glad you mentioned water, because, that's my thing. I drink a lot of water. Because if you drink a lot of water, you have to get up.
Good point. Go to the faucet, grab a nice glass, maybe even stand up while you're drinking.
And then, of course, 20 minutes later, you have to get up and you have to relieve yourself of all that water you just drank. Then when you're on your way out to relieve yourself, or on the way back, you get another glass of water. So it can be tea, coffee, water, whatever. And later in the day, depending on when your cocktail hour starts.
I would go for an espresso martini.
There you go.
What's your cocktail de choix?
Right now, I'd say we have a really nice, there's these organic fruit liqueurs that we got up in Vermont, and you mix that, you make a martini with it. So it's basically a flavored martini. But we're getting into cold weather. So I'm starting to veer a little towards just red wine, although I don't really feel like putting on any additional weight, just because it makes me feel logy. And in the morning, because there's a lot of sugar, you wake up, so I may just have to go back to my solution for all that, which is a little bit of something else and some whiskey. Or some
My girl.
Because you only need, it's just a matter of sort of shifting your perspective easily.
Yeah, exactly.
And not always, because again, you can't wake up and go for a 5-mile hike if you've indulged too much the night before. So it's about balance.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to my question of the show.
Oh my gosh! Oh no.
No, but that's great. Okay. So this is the question that the entire podcast has been shaped around. Are you ready for it? Mm-hmm. Are you doing what you want to be doing with your life?
Wow. Okay, so that's a big question. Mm-hmm. I'd say I'm almost there. How's that?
That sounds like a yes, but?
Mm-hmm. Or a yes, and.
Yes, and.
It could be a yes, and. Mm-hmm. Because I've grown away from some things that I thought were really important, and I really wanted to be part of, and then maybe I'll go back, but acting was a really big part of my life, but I'm rusty. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like if I went back to ballet class, I would not be able to do it right now, because but I'm developing other skills, and I'm looking forward to developing them even more, so that I can be more deeply engaged within them instead of skimming the surface. I talked about painting and writing. Mm-hmm. But I'm still plagued with the large cultural message, which I've wanted to put in the background, but it always comes forward as, in order to. America is a lot about in order to. And, I never had a goal of, let's say becoming fabulously wealthy. I wanted to simply make enough to have the resources to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it.
100% aligned to that.
Yeah. So, and, you know, I'm reaching what they might call retirement age, although most of the people I know are not simply retiring, because nobody really knows what that means anymore unless you're in a corporate job or you're in a civil service job where you get a nice pension. And why did nobody ever tell me about pensions? Wasn't on my radar, but it would have been really nice.
No, thank you for saving the world and removing single-use plastic bags.
Yeah, but 20 years in a pension. Anyway, so I don't have that same stress, but I'm still working on figuring out, because I don't like to say trying, because trying means, it's kind of, namby-pamby. Trying. You can't try to pick up a pencil. You either pick it up or you don't. So what I'm working on is that big question of what's next. And I have come directly to, I'm not that good at not knowing. So I'm more of a director than I am a passive, and it's different than vacation, because vacation you go, you do, you hang out, you maybe have no worries, and you come back and you re-engage. So I don't know what's next. I don't know. I kind of know I don't want to start another business, but on the other hand...
What do you know that it involves? Does it involve health, wellness, cooking, artistry?
Don't know. Don't know. And I don't know if struggling with that question or really working with that question for a year might bring me some clarity, because I have never stopped working since I'm about 12. Literally, I have never had a time in my life, except for maybe a month when my kids was born, where I had an uninterrupted stretch of time that wasn't met at the other end with the obligation that the time started with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've had time. But like my husband Blake had a sabbatical for a year.
I remember that.
Yeah. I've never had, and he didn't have to report, and he was fully compensated for that year. So, I mean, I've never had that entire huge block of time to just see what's what. And as much as I want that, it's a little scary even still. And then we wind up with COVID, right? Which gives us, in the beginning, that entire thing. That's what COVID gave us. I mean, if you weren't suffering from the disease or really flailing because of all the horrible things. And, we're in New York. We're 20 minutes above the Bronx, where it was hitting really hard. But here we had a self-imposed retreat.
So beautiful.
But it wasn't without unimaginable stress, most of it because of the I won't get political, but because of that, and because you see your business and everything you've worked for 30 years falling apart, and you don't know where any of the pieces are going to fall. So I've never had that amount of time. So I'm working on giving myself more time to explore what is next, and working on being okay if it's just being. Which is like, oh my God.
Well, you said that you at least know what you don't like to do. So
Yeah.
It sounds like you just got to try a bunch of stuff and see what sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I know that I don't like my time to be managed by things that I haven't chosen to be managed by. Now, that's a first child syndrome.
I mean, or maybe an only daughter syndrome.
Only daughter criteria, yeah. No, because you came up pretty strong. You have 3 brothers. So, I mean, they
still flinch when I walk by.
I know. You should. Yeah, you have to make them shake. You have to make them shake.
I have some friends who flinch when I walk by.
Yeah, you did that when you were 8 years old. You just weren't as sure of yourself as you are now. And then you probably have moments of insecurity, too. We all do.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course.
So, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm actually thinking of maybe working with a coach, but I've always been so,
Skeptical?
Skeptical. And actually, she comes to me highly recommended, but skeptical, like I can do it myself, and I did the business by myself, and this is, women in business. I had no idea as a woman entrepreneur, first of all, that I was an entrepreneur. I just thought I was a woman who started a business because she needed to make money.
Sure.
And I happened to attach it to something I believed in. But I didn't know how hard it was for us to have a business.
What have been some of the challenges?
Oh, there's huge trap. I mean, I think if I had been not a woman in business, that maybe getting access to money would have been easier. I think people would have, when you bring things up in a conversation, they would have been more of wow instead of that's nice.
Interesting.
Just maybe think bigger along with me. So I tended to think much safer.
I guess. Yeah.
Probably because also I was controlling what I wanted to do and didn't want to do, and that's why I never took money. I didn't want to have to work for somebody. If you take equity, I mean, VC, you have to work for somebody. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware that I was in a minority position in business, and then I was like, oh, I am, and then I was part of the problem too, which is even though I was self-determining and with my own agency. I tended to steer towards men who were my age, my peers, and think they had the answers.
The know-how.
More than I did, right? And it's true there were fewer women to go to, especially fewer women in a consumer goods category. But I didn't seek them out. At conferences, it's not like I'm searching for these people. Yeah. And then I realized, I don't know when it was, probably about 10 years ago, my business is bigger than theirs. And it's made more of an impact. And it's more successful. And I'm asking them how to do it? They don't have the secret sauce.
Yeah.
They may have ideas. These are good guys. But that's how culture trained even me, who came, Gloria Steinem, all the... I was a child of the 70s, the feminist movement. I never, we just got lifted up in that. We weren't of the 60s, so I rode the coattails of all the 60s. And then we handed it to you all. I mean, between you and Eva and oh my gosh, I mean, right?
And here we are. Blazing our own trails.
Yeah. And there's a lot of challenges still because there's a lot of challenges, but we have Kamala. There's Kamala.
Very exciting to have a female in the office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a woman who represents so many different cultures and who is educated and I could go on. I'm just thrilled. For a new perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, probably we'll see how political I make this podcast, but yeah, it's crazy when they used to do this thing where they showed a bunch of emojis of the president, and it was like 45 or 44 white men with white hair, and then it was boom, there's Obama.
Yeah.
They can do the same for the vice president. It's a bunch of white men, and then boom, there's Kamala.
Well, I'm watching The Crown, and they did the same thing for Margaret Thatcher. But it's just a woman. It's like all gray.
My mom's watching The Crown too. What's up with that?
Oh, it's the best.
Have you watched Downton Abbey?
Yeah, but that was like years ago.
I know.
Yeah.
I just binged all of it.
Have you watched The Queen's Gambit?
I'm watching it now. I'm on episode 5.
To have a young woman who's is brilliant. I mean, why it's 2020.
Come out, ladies.
Yeah, come out. So there's a lot of norms that we've had to manage and jump through. And then there's a lot of, and not all, I mean, there's a lot of movement in our space too, in terms of really progressive, in the entrepreneur space, progressive owners, women owners, minority owners. I don't even think it's minority anymore. Let's just call it. Let's just call it. We are the majority.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's a good point.
So, if you put together all the others, right? Black, brown, Asian, Jewish, woman, whatever, you just his, her, all the whatevers, put them all together, you've got a much larger pie and you have a much richer pie. And it's way more fun to play. So that's what I'm thinking.
Obsessed.
Yeah. And I'm just a small business, or a tiny business, as they say.
A tiny business. A magic tiny business.
A magical tiny business.
We're just about at time.
No.
Though I can obviously talk to you forever.
Yeah. I'm actually thrilled that you asked me that. I'm really honored. I am.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So you didn't know any other women entrepreneurs or women in business? Really?
When I first came to, Ossining, no. I remember when I graduated from school, I was probably just having summers off and I needed a job. And I worked with you and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm in an office. It kind of set the standard for the culture that I actually appreciated. I remembered Lisa used to go down by McSorley's to get tacos for us on Tuesdays.
Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, it was great. And just it was open floor. So there was always access to everybody, including yourself, even being the founder and CEO. I just thought that was amazing. Truly.
Oh, wow.
And the samples that I got to keep.
Yeah. You can keep more. Yeah, that's so interesting because I never really understood culture until I was like, oh, that's culture. Mm-hmm. In terms of office culture, just having, I really do think that if you ask someone what they want in your business, they'll tell you, I want an extra hour off. I want, whatever, even compensation.
I want to work from home once a week.
I want to work from home. I want to be able to leave when my kids need me. Yeah. It's like, why should that be a big deal? That should be so easy. And if you make people's lives easier, then they're happy to work together. Yeah. I mean, we kind of miss that now. We gave up the office.
I know.
Had to. Nobody wants to go into it.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's just walls with paint.
What's your greatest takeaway from our conversation? What do you think your immediate plans are going to be towards what you want to do?
My takeaway would be that the most important thing is to be curious, stay curious. And to, you may think you want to go down that road, like for me, go down it, investigate. And if it doesn't work, turn around, go down another one. It's like, I think it's an ongoing conversation with yourself. And I think one thing I've learned from COVID is that when you don't rely as much on external stimulation, you can hear more inside sometimes, because clearly we're not going out as much and we're not entertaining as much and we're not seeing all the inputs. I mean, of course, there's a million videos, but
sure,
there's a lot of content out there. But I just know that when I get into a sort of a gray or blah space, even as I'm working to figure this all out, the best thing to do is to engage with a practice. And for me right now, that's painting.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I would say that's exercising, reading. I remember you used to write haikus every morning, or was it just a poem?
No, I did. I started with haikus, and then I went to 10-minute writing and timing it, and then 20-minute writing, and that's how I wrote the book. Oh, I wasn't writing before that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The only reason I wrote the book was I started a writing practice, and I made it really easy to write. Like, again, a haiku, what does that take? 3 minutes? Mm-hmm. Not even. I didn't stress about it. Then I went on to longer timed writings, and I actually wrote a short story, and I started a play, and I did all sorts of things. And then a friend of mine said, you should write a book. And I was like, really? She said, yeah. And then I came up with an idea, I pitched it, and they said yes. And I was like, oh, damn, I have to write this now. Because that's kind of weird to have an idea for a book and pitch a publisher and they say yes.
Yeah.
And the key thing to that, though, is because I stayed really engaged with different communities in the business world, in the social business world, and in the social entrepreneur business world, all I did was write on my Facebook, does anybody know anybody who knows anybody, blah, 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 book. And they put me in touch with the people who wound up publishing. So it was a major publisher.
Congratulations.
There's a lot of generosity out there.
You just got to ask for help.
You just got to ask for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, if you are out there getting stir crazy, especially as we approach winter, it's getting darker earlier. Set some routines for yourself. Maybe you wake up at the same time each day, have a cup of coffee, consider writing a haiku, maybe a letter, go for a walk, stretch. We just got to keep our minds right during these times. Mm-hmm. So Sharon, given you're not sure exactly what you want to be doing, how do you walk away from this conversation with a little more oomph to figure that out?
I think what I do, in fact, not just think, what I will do is on Monday morning, I'll go back to my studio. It's closed on the weekend. and I will continue to show up. That's the key thing. I will continue to engage in my daily practices, which right now are walking as many steps as possible. I like to walk about 4 miles a day plus, and then show up at my studio for at least an hour a day and paint.
I love that. Simple, routine, wholesome. Thank you so much, Sharon
Thank
Rowe.
you.
Pleasure to talk to you. And till next time.
You grew up nicely.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
All right, there's another one down. I love that everyone is going to answer the question of whether they are doing what they want to be doing with their lives differently. It really kind of depends on what stage in your life you're in, too. I also love that while Sharon is doing so much, there's still something left to be discovered, and I super relate to that. Finding what you want to do with your life can be a constant practice. If you have friends, family members, colleagues who you think would love this episode, this podcast, please subscribe, share, leave a comment. You can find Sharon on Instagram at Sharon Rowe _, that's Rowe with an E. Her company, Ecobags Products Inc. at Ecobags _US. And her book, The Magic of Tiny Business, You Don't Have to Go Big to Make a Great Living, at SharonRowe.com. And me, of course, at Bullish with Toro. Remember, set a goal, take some steps, and get after it. Stay bullish, y'all. Until next time.
It's Bullish with Toro.